thank you very much. As you know, I've been promising you for weeks and weeks and weeks that I'd actually have some classes for helping you folks get to your next careers and finding a job 101. Today's session is an introductory session. Every week that we get together, again, there's going to be some sort of handouts out there. As you can tell, one set of handouts is all the slides with some places that you could put some notes in, and there might be some other handouts of different types of things. So to let you know, obviously there's no grades. I'm not going to be grading anything in terms of you notice the class. So the only passing grade you're going to get is if you find a job faster than you expected to find a job. And I'm not marking any papers. Matter of fact, the key thing for this whole 14, 15-week class is to turn you folks into salespeople. And what you are selling is yourselves. So a lot of you folks haven't been looking for a job for years and years and years. Matter of fact, I bet you, how many people have not looked for a job in over 10 years? Okay? How many have not looked for a job in over 5 years? Okay, so there's quite a few folks in this room that haven't looked for a job in the last 5 to 10 years. This is going to be informal. I want you to be able to ask questions. I want you to feel free to ask questions as we go along. I'm going to start off this baby by giving you a quiz. Okay, let's go over the answers. Question number 1, it is not good practice to ask friends and family members for employer contacts and leads. False. How many put true? Okay, you guys are wrong. False is correct. Friends and relatives are excellent resources and usually glad to help. And we'll talk about that in a few lessons. If you mail cover letters and resumes to enough companies, it is likely to produce excellent work prospects. True or false? False. How many people put true? You guys are wrong. It is false. Mass mailings of unsolicited resumes are usually a waste of time and postage. We'll talk about that in a few weeks. On average, a potential employer will take between 1 and 2 minutes to read a resume for the first time.
True. False.
How many people put false? You are correct. Why did you put false?
Because they take about 10 or 15 seconds to glance.
Close. The average time an employer reads a resume is less than 30 seconds. It's less than 30 seconds. The majority of positions are filled through ads and executive search firms. True or false? False. How many people are true? You are incorrect. False is the right answer. A small percentage of executive positions are filled through ads and executive search firms. Number 6, senior level managers are not likely to talk with job seekers who call them on the phone. True or false?
True.
How many put false? Did anyone put false? Bill Jarvis? And Carrie? Well, you're the only ones who got it right. To the contrary, even in today's time-crunched work world, executives will talk with you if you are referred to them by someone that they know.
Oh, you didn't put that on?
It wasn't a trick question. The average work tenure at a company is less today than it was 10 years ago. True or false? True. Anyone put false? It's true. It's true. Number 8, the so-called hidden work market accounts for 35% of the available work for most individuals. True or false?
True. False.
False? Why do you put false?
I think it's a higher percentage that we don't know about.
The answer is false. The hidden work market accounts for roughly 3 out of every 4 jobs.
Wow.
3 out of every 4 jobs. Number 9, networking and development of personal contacts are by far the most effective methods of locating employment today. True or false? True. Anyone put false?
What was the question?
Number 9, networking and development of personal. Anyone put false on number 9? The answer is true. Number 10, many employers are looking for individuals with broad experience in several functions rather than technical experts. True or false?
True.
Anyone put false? The answer is true. Number 11, the best companies expect you to go through formal channels if you're to be seriously considered as a candidate for employment. True or false?
False.
Anyone put true? The answer is false.
Hey.
The higher the level, the more positions are filled through backdoor rather than through more formal channels. And last, HJD will probably find work for you. True or false?
False.
It's definitely false. No one will do it for you. You have to do it yourself. Okay, who got all 12 right? Who got 11 right? 11 right, Kathy Kylie. Who got 10 right?
Started hanging around you.
10. Who got 9? 9, not too bad. 8? Who, everyone else got less than 8. I won't embarrass you. Okay, good job. Okay, so you're all sitting there going, hey, you got one question in your mind. Why the hell listen to Harold? Right? What does Harold know about this that I don't know? And why should we figure out, why should we have these meetings? Why should we come up here? Well, the true answer is, and you can see the number of companies I've worked for in my life is I've moved around a lot. No one wants to keep me. Every time I go someplace, they let me go someplace else. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you a quick story about the first place I worked at the Casualty. Many of you folks, most of you folks, not all of you folks, know I graduated from the University of Connecticut back in 1982. Let me tell you the year I actually graduated from the University of Connecticut. The school that has 2 national championships, one in women's and for basketball, if you guys didn't know that. So I graduated in 1982 and I got my first job at Aetna Casualty, which was a property casualty firm, which was the property casualty side of Cigna. I'm sorry, property casualty side of Connecticut General. And right around the time that I got this job, Connecticut General, Aetna Casualty, merged with I&A in Philadelphia to form the first blockbuster merger called Cigna. Any of the mergers you've especially heard in insurance, the first major one was Cigna. I started my career working for Aetna Casualty, which was in downtown Hartford. It was about 1,100 people, on June 28th. Why are you telling me the date you started working at Aetna Casualty? Because on June 30th, 28th, 29th, June 30th. June 30th, they brought all 1,100 employees down to the auditorium and said, oh, by the way, due to the Cigna merger, you're all out of jobs. I had just bought a house, condo. I just bought a car, and I was getting married to my first wife within a year, and I already was unemployed after 3 days. So, it's a pretty funny story, and I'll tell you the rest of it some other time. But through my experiences at Aetna Casualty, Travelers, Guardian, Deloitte, and here at America Scandia, I have almost used every single method to find a job. The only methods I have not used to find a job were internet or the want ads. But almost every single way I have found a job. Obviously, when I came out of school, I used a college recruiter. That's how I got my Aetna Casualty job. College recruiter came to campus. They gave a precursory interview, sat down with me for half an hour. Could I walk and chew gum at the same time? Did they like my resume? When they liked me and they liked my resume, they brought me back into the home office, and then I went through a bunch of interviews there. So that was the way I found my Aetna Casualty job. I got lucky to find a traveler's job. I told you I lost my job in 3 days. All the positions that we were looking for were we obviously hired for, because all the college recruiters came to campus and hired everybody. So I was definitely stuck. So what I started doing is I did what I wasn't supposed to do. I got lucky. I mailed my resume and cover letter to a bunch of companies. I was lucky that Travelers actually had someone flunk out of their actuarial science program, and I was one of 3 people that interviewed and somehow got that job. After I was at Travelers for 13 and a half years, I left the company. It was kind of a mutual parting of the ways, but a retained recruiter helped me get the job at the Guardian. Guy calls me up out of the blue sky, says 2 or 3 people actually referred my name to that person. So when I was a retained recruiter, I was up in Newington, Connecticut. I met him at Trumbull's Marriott for a breakfast with him. If he thought I could walk and chew gum at the same time, I was one of the 3 candidates they brought in to Guardian in New York City, and somehow I figured out how to get that job. After I left Guardian, after 2 years, I actually met up with I was actually with a contingency recruiter. Contingency recruiter, which we're going to learn about, is the type of recruiter that only gets paid if they can place you. they're like pimps, okay? If they don't place you, they don't get paid. If they place you, they get paid. I knew this contingency recruiter for 13 years. She called me up and networked with me on a regular basis for 13 years. She had actually no revenue for me for 13 years. And then she placed me at Deloitte & Touche, and I'm sure she got a lot of money for that. So that's how I got my Deloitte & Touche job. And my targeting networking was the way I got my job here at America's Canyon. I was actually in San Francisco, California, for Deloitte & Touche giving a speech at a LOMA conference. And who should be in the audience but Nancy Bernetti? And I had this little trick. Consultants had this little trick. We had these big presentations, and we said, oh, by the way, if you want a copy of my presentation, can you please give me your business card at the end? Because then now all of a sudden we have contacts, we can pick up the phone and call up and try to solicit more business. Nancy gives me the card, and I look at it, and I go, Shelton, Connecticut, I live in Shelton, Connecticut. She goes, oh, I work at America's Gas. I said, oh, I live right around the corner from here. I said, we should get together for lunch. Okay, we should get together for lunch. The funny thing happened within a month, another friend, who some of you know because you work with him here, Phil Klein, worked in the claims area for a little while. He was actually down here doing work, found out that Teresa Grove was leaving the company, and Teresa reported to Nancy Bernetti. Nancy Bernetti reported to Gordon Morneau, who I met a year earlier. All of a sudden, all these connections started coming together. Picked up the phone and called Nancy. Nancy and I had lunch. Lunch turned to an interview, and somehow, again, they decided to hire me. So, Wireless and Herald, I've been around, and I've tried almost everything, and I know which ones work faster and which ones work slower. And I think that, again, you need to, there's not one true correct method one way or another, but you need to learn about all the methods and decide which ones work for you. Okay, I want to hear from you. What are you guys hoping to get out of this course?
A job. A job.
A job. Okay, I'll put a job down there. But obviously, what things are you hoping to do to be able to learn how to get a job?
Skills.
What kind of skills? Interviewing skills? Interviewing skills. Okay.
Writing with resume.
How to write a resume.
Yeah.
That's it? Okay, this will be an easy class.
No.
What else?
How to network.
How to network. Anything else? That's
Sell
it.
yourself.
What's that?
How to sell yourself.
How to sell yourself. Okay, keep going.
Maybe what employers are looking for.
What are employers looking for?
How to negotiate.
Negotiate. Good one. I'll tell you what you told some of the other folks, your people you report to. Interview etiquette, how to dress, how to do thank yous, how to do follow-ups, how to maximize job search websites, how to research a company's culture, networking do's and don'ts, interview coaching, resume creation, cover letters, art of negotiation, which we talked about, career development plans, what do I want to do when I grow up, strategies for staying at Prudential. Is that still true?
Figuring out what you're worth.
Figuring out what you're worth? What am I worth? We also put in here how to apply for state unemployment. I think you'll be getting some of that pretty soon. Who else may need to be notified, insurance coverage, action items, etc. So those are kind of the things. This is a pretty good list of what folks want? Okay, so let's talk about what we're actually going to do. If you take out your syllabus, it's a tentative schedule of what we're going to be doing and when we're going to be doing it. So I want you to notice two things on the schedule. One is on June 9th. We will definitely not be having the class on June 9th, which is a Wednesday. It'll probably move to either the 8th or the 10th. So I want you to know that. And on June 16th, there will be no classes that week due to CFE training, mainly in imaging distribution, which they're going to be doing all week, and they have a little bit more difficult training than the rest of us because they've got to figure out how to clean and scan and index on a new system. But everything else hopefully will go as scheduled, and I'm hoping on September 1st, it'll be ability to do a wrap-up or a question and answer. It'll be kind of a catch-all if there's anything else we haven't covered in the first 13, 14 weeks. And of course, I'm not even sure if I'm going on vacation here somewhere, so we might have to cancel a week and then move everything down but my wife hasn't told me when we're leaving, when we're going anywhere, so one of these days we'll do that. But you can see the course outline. We're going to go around 15 weeks. We're going to be 11:30 on Wednesdays. We're going to try to shoot for 1 hour. Most times we'll be within that hour. Sometimes you're going to be a little bit over that hour. Obviously, most of your bosses are in the room, so I don't think they're going to yell at you because that's what we're going to do. The key things we're going to talk about are how to research, okay, how to research to find a job, how to research to do some of the things that you asked over there to do. How do you research to do networking? How do you research to do resume writing? How do you research to interview? We're going to talk about methods of finding a job. I kind of told you a little bit about how I've found jobs in the past. There's a few other methods that I told you I've never used before in terms of internet and actual want ads. We're going to go over interviewing. We're actually going to probably take out the video recorder for interviewing. I'm not sure we're going to do it in front of everyone in the class, but we might ask for volunteers and do some interviewing to show what some of the do's and don'ts are. I'm not sure if we're going to do it off the cuff, or we're actually going to ask you to do a bad interview. And we're going to talk about negotiating, because hopefully you folks are going to get not one, but more than one offer. And you got to figure out how to negotiate through multiple offers. So let's talk a little bit about research. Our first session, as you can see, next week, is going to start talking about preparing a resume. And we're going to talk about resume preparation for 3 weeks. First, we're going to talk about preparing a resume. We're going to talk about formatting a resume. And then we're going to actually review first drafts of resumes. We're going to bring an overhead projector in here, and I'm going to ask you to give me a copy of your resume. We're going to put it up on the board, and we're going to critique it. Now, some of you folks have said to me offline, please don't embarrass me. Please don't embarrass me. Please don't call on me. Please, my job is to try to help you find a job. And I think for the most part, I'm not going to be trying to purposely embarrass you. But I think instead of just having one pair of eyes see what your resume looks like, it'd be great to have 30 or 40 pairs of eyes to be able to say, oh, if you did this, oh, I see a typo, or if you did this better. All of a sudden, everyone can start helping everyone get to the point where we want to get to, which is actually helping everyone find a job. We're going to talk about prospecting people, which is, again, the starting of networking. Right, Bill, you asked about networking and the targeting networking piece. How do you prospect people? Who do I go after? Obviously, some of you folks got that question wrong on the quiz. I should talk to my friends and family. A lot of you said, no, I shouldn't talk to my friends and family. Matter of fact, when I heard about networking for the first time, I thought networking was you pick up the phone and you ask your uncle, does he have a job for you? And that's not what networking is. Matter of fact, when you learn about what networking is, it's a little less scary, and you're able to do it a lot less trepidation. And prospecting companies. You saw the quiz. The quiz at the bottom said DBM. DBM stands for Drake Beam Warren, which is one of the outplacement services that I was using when I was left Travelers and when I left Guardian. So I've used some outplacement services. And Drake Beam Warren gave me a really great tip that we're going to actually work on, which is as you're researching to figure out where you want to work in the future, you need to actually come up with a list of 25 companies. A list of the names of the companies and the addresses of the companies. Because when you sit down and you're networking with people, or you're asking people for help, you say, hey, do you know anybody who might be hiring somebody? And off the top of their head, they might not know anyone. But when you hear a list of 25 companies, oh, my uncle works here. Oh, my wife's best friend is the secretary of the CEO over here. Your goal is to find people that know people that are in those companies, and then find people that are hiring in those companies. And the best way to do that is to do your research to figure out which companies you want to work at, and preparing a list of the top 25 companies, which will change. Okay, you're going to go to a networking class, and they're going to say, Prudential Financial is going to be on there. They're going to say, you don't want to go to Prudential Financial, they're not hiring right now. So you want to take them off your list and find another company to put in there. But that gets people thinking, getting people to help you find your next job. Methods. We talked about a few of the methods earlier. Targeting networking is one of the top methods of finding a job in really in today's marketplace. So we're going to talk to you about how to develop a networking script, how to develop a networking agenda. Because if I tell you go network, right? What are you going to do? So you want to be prepared. As a matter of fact, I'm not afraid to admit to you that I wrote out every word of every telephone call I made. Hello, this is Harold Derrick. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, obviously, I practiced enough so it didn't sound like I was reading it, but I was scared shitless. Okay? And I want to make sure that I was saying the right things and I wasn't screwing up the right things. And so a script is very important. An agenda is very important. because you're going to be taking people's time when you actually network with folks. And to know what you're going to talk about and you know how you're going to want to say it is very, very important. We're going to talk about a 2-minute drill. And what a 2-minute drill is, very quickly, your ability to tell somebody that you're meeting, either in an elevator, at a cocktail party, or at a networking meeting, within 2 minutes, who you are and what you want to do. And we'll go over that in great, great detail. Recruiters. We talked a little bit about recruiters. There are some recruiters that are retained recruiters that you might want to send out cover letters to, because again, retained recruiters, they work for the company. They get paid by the company no matter what. Contingent recruiters are the ones that only get paid if you are hired by them. So we'll talk a little bit about recruiters and which ones you should use and which ones you should not use. We'll talk very little about direct mail, something about want ads, and also a little bit something about the internet as well. Because obviously some folks in an earlier session did bring up the internet. How do I look online and find different things out? And the internet is a great source of information of who's hiring and how much you're worth and what cultures are in certain companies. And I'll give you some websites that you guys can play around with and look at that have helped me out in the past and have helped some friends of mine out in the past. Usually I'm going to ask the question is which is the most successful, but I know on this page, at the bottom of this page, you know what's most successful because slide number 9 tells you what the results of the methods are. By far the best resulting method is targeting networking. It's the scariest, it's the one you know least about. So when some of you might have found jobs in the past unknowingly, matter of fact, I'm trying to think who told me that the reason they got a job here at American Scanning was through a friend. How many people got a job here at American Scanning through a friend? Okay? So some of you have used targeting network. Now you didn't know you were doing it, possibly when you were doing it, but someone said, hey, you told me, Kathy, you had a friend here. And then you're the one who told me you had a job.
Well, not, yeah.
Through an
It's
acquaintance.
a network, right.
Right.
My son's basketball team, one of the mothers on the same team, she walked in with the Scandia, and I had already been applying for 3 months and could not get in,
Right.
and then got immediate results.
So it's definitely who you know. Matter of fact, Diane just walked out of the room. I told her I was going to do this, but as you all know, she's engaged to Carl. And what you might not know is a week ago Monday, at about 10 o'clock in the morning, Carl got really irritated at his boss, and he quit on the spot. And he left. He left his job. He said, I've had it up to here with you. I'm leaving. And he went home, and he made himself a sandwich. It was lunchtime. And he picked up the phone, and by 1:30, he had another job, which he started on Monday.
Wow.
That's networking at its finest. That's knowing the right people, picking up the phone. One call. One call. This guy said to him a year ago, oh, by the way, if you're ever looking for a job, pick up the phone and call me. I'm looking for a job. When can you start? So that is networking at its finest. Recruiters are the next best results, 10 to 20%. Again, some of it are in it for themselves, some of them are in it for the company. You need to make sure you're aware of recruiters and what they can do for you and what you need to make sure they don't do for you, because they could screw up some of your networking if they get too aggressive with getting your name in front of a bunch of companies. So we'll talk about that when we get to that session. As a matter of fact, we're talking about those sessions are right around June 23rd, 30th, 7th, and the 14th. We're talking about prospecting people and companies, targeting network scripts, targeting network agendas, targeting network practice, and on July 21st, other methods, which will be recruiters, direct mail, want ads, and internet. And again, internet's probably growing a little bit, but again, an internet method is also very passive. There's two kinds of methods of finding a job, active and passive. Active is you're doing something. You're making calls, you're visiting people, you're seeing what's going on. Passive is you're waiting for the phone to ring. You're waiting for your letter to be answered. You're waiting for that email to come back. And passive isn't a lot of fun. Passive makes you worry. Passive is, did they get the email? Did they get the red letter? Did they get the resume? Where did they put the resume? 30 seconds. Did they see mine? And the goal is to do more active approaches than passive. And that's why targeted networking is the highest. So the last bullet point on that slide is very, very important. You should use everything on that list, but you should maximize the ones that are the most successful. You should maximize the networking ones. And again, hopefully, as we go through the class, you'll feel much better about it, because we'll talk to you about what that actually means, what we need to do. Interviewing. So we're going to talk about preparing for interviewing. We're going to go through a slew of interviewing questions and answers. Okay? The very, very good news for you is most people who interview really stink at it. They're terrible. I mean, some of you folks have interviewed folks, right? Hey, Melissa, we want you to interview this new person. Oh, okay. Well, what should I ask? Right? We didn't tell you what to ask. We said, well, go interview the person. I came here to American Scandia, and I interviewed with Gordon Borno, who was the president at the time, Nancy Brunetti, who was the senior vice president. I interviewed with Lisa Shambellin, Scott Haggerty, Tammy Voss. I interviewed with 5 people. Who was my best interviewer? Tammy Voss, Lisa Shambellin, Nancy, Tammy Voss. Tammy skewered me with very pointed questions. Gordon, I talked to Gordon for an hour and a half. He got it on a whiteboard, he pulled a Herald, he got it on a whiteboard, and he drew for me the American Scandia vision and the American Scandia thing and how we fit in with everything. An hour and a half, he gave me a great lesson. And then he asked me one question and I was into it. I can't remember the question. An hour and a half, he asked me one question. Tammy, boom, then boom, boom. Matter of fact, Tammy asked me so many questions I actually knew what I was getting into. I actually knew the issues in variable life by the questions that she asked me. So the good news is we're going to give you a bunch of questions and answers that is going to pretty much make you fairly prepared for 95% of the bad interviewers you have out there. And matter, we're also going to give you some questions that you should be asking them. Because it's very important for you to be asking them questions to find out about, do you want to work there? Do you want to work in their culture? Do you want to work for that person? Are you getting the same story when you talk to several people that are interviewing you for a job? We're going to practice. We're going to do some practicing. I'm not sure we're going to do practicing in front of the class. We can talk about that. We definitely have you practice outside the class. Again, some of you we might videotape. We'll probably do the ones that take it more than one. We'll ask for volunteers, so we won't put anybody on the spot. But practicing is very important. You know, it's either you practice now or you go to that first interview and you screw up and you don't get the job of your dreams. I mean, that's the worst thing that can happen. You have the ability to get the job of your dreams. It's in the location you want. It's the pay you want. You really want this job, and you go in and you lay in it because you didn't practice. You didn't do the study that you needed to do. And last off, we're going to talk about references. Reference lists and preparing the references. Not preparing a list, but actually preparing the reference. Matter of fact, I've been a reference in the last several weeks for quite a few folks, and luckily they've actually gotten jobs. Phil Klein used me as a reference and got a job in General Motors. Abby Murphy, for those of you folks, used me as a reference, and they told me they were going to make her the offer to the job. I'm not sure if they did or not. It's very important to, matter of fact, what's his name, phase 2? Worked in claims. Baseball player, softball, shortstop. Brian Latham. Brian Latham used me as a reference, and he got a job as well in the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's very important. I mean, I coach them in how to use me as a reference, but it's very important to tell the people that you want to use as a reference that you would like to use them as a reference, and to find out what they're going to say about you. Now, Harold, I'd like to use you as a reference. What do you think are my strengths? What do you think are my weaknesses? And if you find out I think your weaknesses are really pretty bad, well, thank you. I mean, you can tell me you're going to use me as a reference, but you're going to cross my name on it, right? You want to use good references. And oh, by the way, you want to be consistent. Matter of fact, I'll also teach you how to prepare your references, because sometimes they go, well, I'm not really sure what I'd say. Well, let me help you with that. I have an email I can send you, which tells you the strengths I'm saying I have and the weaknesses I'm saying I have. Now, you don't have to actually use them, but just in case, I don't want you to lie about me. But at least you're trying to get consistency, so that the weaknesses you say are the weaknesses you say, and the weaknesses are you say for me. Instead of you coming up with a new one, now I got 3 weaknesses instead of 1. So it's very important to make sure you're coaching your references as you go along. Negotiation. We'll go through the process of negotiation. Matter of fact, we're talking about it. Let's go back to the syllabus. We'll talk about interviewing 4 weeks. The 28th of July, August 4th, 11th, and 18th. We'll talk about basics, questions, practice, and follow-up. We'll talk about negotiation on August 25th. We'll go through the process of negotiation. We'll go through the preparation of the negotiation, and hopefully, which offer to choose from. Hopefully, you're going to have multiple offers. What happens when I have an offer from company A, but I really want to work for company B and they haven't made me an offer yet? Okay? And some of the answers are easy. Some of the answers are really hard. You call company B up and they say, we're still not ready to make our decision, and you really want to work for company B, you have to make a decision. Do I say yes to company A, or do I throw that offer out the table? This is, unfortunately, these are the hardest decisions, and you have to make them yourselves. And we'll talk a little bit about how you make them. I mean, you really need to think about what's important to you and your families for your next job, in your next career. And you want to utilize that checklist to try to get objective as possible and not to panic and take the first job. One of the most interesting things about negotiation, I told you I was with a retained recruiter who would travel because I just took the job. I was desperate to get a job. I was getting married and all that other stuff. But after I left Guardian, or after I left Travelers, I had a retained recruiter, and I went actually to New York City, and I had my interview with them, and I think it was a full-day interview. And I came back, and they said they were really impressed, and they wanted to talk to a few more candidates. And then my boss was shoveling snow, and he got a back injury. So he wasn't in work for like 2 or 3 weeks. So they called me, we're still interested, but John's out. He's out with a back injury. Same time, I kept my other things going, and I got another job offer from Company B. And obviously Company A was kind of the one I was shooting for. So I called Company A up. By this time John was back, and I said, I got an offer for Company B. I said, I told him I'd get back to him by the end of the week. I said, but I really would like to see what you're going to offer. If you're going to offer me it, within a day I got an offer. Now I had 2 offers to choose from. I could play around and negotiate and have some fun, and obviously I took the Guardian job. So we'll talk about negotiation. What will I do for you? Okay? Obviously I'm going to have weekly classes. I am going to review your homework. I'm not going to grade it. Again, well, let's talk a little bit about homework, because I think I've had a lot of fun conversations with some of you about homework. I don't want to do homework. Why do I want to? I'm not grading homework. Okay? I'll review it for you. I'm not grading it. If you don't want to do it, who are you spiting? You're not spiting me. You don't want to work on your resume? You don't work on it in June? May or June? I'll work on it in November, December when you don't have a job. It's up to you. You don't want to work on the questions. You don't want to work on the practicing. Okay. You're not spiting me. I'm going to go home and sleep well. Okay. I'm not losing any sleep over it. I'm not grading. So I strongly suggest you do it, because why? You have a whole slew of people, look around the room, that are in the same boat as you guys are. And you can ask them questions. Hey, how'd you handle this? How did you do that? You could, I'm around. I'm around for the next, X amount of weeks as well. It'd be easy to sit down with me and talk about it. I'm going down this path. Is this right? What would you do? It's better to do it now than wait until we're all done. As a matter of fact, to let you know, for most of you, you will have some outplacement, but it's not going to be nearly as much as you think. From what I'm hearing, you're going to be given a 2-day seminar, which will probably be everything we're going over now. I strongly suggest you take it, because I don't know everything. Okay? And they might come up with a couple of ideas that are better than mine, and you might be able to talk to somebody who has a different slant on what's going on. But, so instead of cramming everything in 2 days, in which case you can't do the homework, you probably don't have a ton of time to follow up calls, you have 14, 15 weeks, where you can come back and ask me questions or come back and ask your peers questions. So I strongly suggest you do the homework as we give it to you. I'm going to answer your questions on a regular basis. I am going to push you towards discomfort. I want you to be discomfort. I want you to feel a little edgy. Because I want you to be real comfortable when you get into that interview situation. I want you to feel real comfortable when you're networking, when you're picking up the phone and calling up someone for the first time that you don't know. Hi, my name is Harold Derrick. I was referred to you by Kathy Kiley. She said you would be really, really helpful in my job search. Do you have 20 minutes I could spend sometime late next week? It's going to be really scary the first time you did it. Scary the first time I did it. Probably scary for me the next time I do it. Okay, because I'm going to be doing it. I've already started laying the groundwork for some of the educational people I want to talk to. I'm a mentor in the Shelton school system. I talked to the head of the mentoring program and said, hey, I'm going to be calling you up the next few weeks. I want to sit down with you. I want to talk to the principal at Sunnyside, who I kind of know a little bit. I want to talk to the superintendent of schools in Shelton, who knows me from my days here in Shelton, knows me from mentoring. But, I don't talk to these guys on a regular basis. But I'm going to be discomforted. Okay? And last but not least, I'm going to coach you. I'm going to kick you in the butt when needed. I'm going to walk around and ask you how your homework's doing. I walk around and ask you how your work's doing. So I might as well ask you how your homework's doing. I ask some of you folks how your homework's doing now. For some of you that are taking finals and going through school. What will you do for you? I can't tell you how important it is for you to leave this company with a positive attitude. Because it shows. When I left Guardian, I was really pissed. I didn't look for a job for 2 months. Because I was pissed. And I knew it would show. They screwed me. I'm not going to speak for it, but they screwed me at the time. I was really pissed. Okay? They promised me this. They gave me this. I was pissed. And you go to that next employer and you say bad things about your previous employer, bad things about your previous boss. They're not going to hire you. Why would I want to hire someone who might hate me so bad? You need to have a positive attitude. You need to have an extremely positive attitude. You can't have a chip on your shoulder. It does show, even if you don't think it's there. So that's why you want to get through all your negative problems right now while you're still here, so that day one, you are ready to go out and hit the ground running. You need to attend each session. You don't actually have to attend each session. I know some of you said, hey, look, I got a great resume, I'm not going to go to the resume ones. That's why I sent out a syllabus. I'd encourage you to show up anyway. You might learn something that you didn't think you learned from either me or someone else in the class. Someone else might come up with something good. I want you to ask questions. I want you to practice what I'm teaching you. You know, I'm going to give you assignments, and I expect you to practice, because you'd rather practice them now than practice them for real life for the first time. I want you to share your ideas. I know most of you are quiet today. This is much more of a me talking session than you talking session, but I want you to be able to share your ideas, and obviously I want you to do your homework. Because again, you are going to need to find the job for you, okay? How to speed your progress up. Okay, I obviously want you to be proactive. This is your career. The more time you spend on the job search, the sooner you will find it. So how much of a commitment of time is it? Obviously, you know, folks, I know the folks around the room are not working 40 hours a week. So some of you guys have 1 to 2 hours extra a day. Some of you are going to go home early. Some of you might want to stick around and actually start working on some of the stuff while you're here. But once you lose your jobs, and you know, so your last day of work is a Friday, and your Monday comes along, you know, what do? Okay, I strongly suggest you try to find 30 hours of your week that week, and 30 hours of your week every week to find a job. It's pretty much a full-time job to find a job. So you want to schedule your time, the 30 hours a week. You want to have some uptime where you're actually making phone calls and visiting people and working on the resumes and doing things like that. And you want to have some balance. You want to have some downtime where you're going to your kids' games or you're going to your spouse's this or that. Because you do need the balance. Matter of fact, it was pretty funny when I left Guardian. I told you I took a couple months off. I started in September. In October, I took a week off. I went to California for a wedding. We had a friend who was getting married in California. I took a week off. Took a vacation from finding a job. And I came back and picked up where I took off. So it's working for something else. It's working to market you. And you need to have that schedule. You need to stick to that schedule. If you know you're a morning person, wake up at 7 o'clock, start doing what you need to do, make those telephone calls from 8 to 12. You know you're an afternoon person, do it that time, but you need to get your 30 hours in a week. You need to schedule yourself, and you need to do it in a way that's going to help you get a job faster than anyone else. Build a support system. Obviously, I'm going to force you to build a support system here at work as part of your homework assignment, which you'll see in a couple of slides. But also outside of work, build a support system. It could be your spouse, it could be your uncle, it could be your aunt, it could be your parents. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Was probably one of the most difficult things for me to do, was to ask for help. But people out there are dying to help you out. All you need to do is ask them. And of course, I can't have a presentation without talking about something to do with SMART goals. But you want to have specific goals. You want to be able to measure them. Some of those goals might be, I'm going to make 5 phone calls a week to my networking people. One of my goals was every single time I went to a networking meeting, I had to come up with 3 to 5 names. So I pushed them and pushed them and pushed them to get 3 to 5 names and 3 to 5 telephone numbers, and the ability to actually pick up the phone and call them up and say, hey, Kathy Kiley asked me to call you up. Because that is how you're going to make some true progress in what's going on. For those of you who follow what you're going to be learning here, as well as that 2-day seminar, the average time to find a job is 4 months. So I know a lot of you folks are adding up your severance and adding up your retention bonus. Most of you are getting much more than 4 months. I think most of you are probably getting somewhere in the vicinity of around 4 to 6 months. So if you start a little bit early, like you know your last day is around such and such a time, you start 7 weeks before that to actually find a job, you will most likely, hopefully, overlap in a short period of time. I would strongly suggest you wait till the end and get your retention and get your severance. You wait this long. We've almost been told a year ago that you guys are losing your job. I think it was in August. It's almost been a year. I think it'd be really, really silly, but you got to do what you got to do to give up the retention and to give up the severance this close to the end. If you learn hopefully when we go through all this stuff, you're feeling more comfortable about what you need to do and how to do it, so that you'll be confident when you're out of work to find your next job. Okay, here's the fun part. You have it in front of you. Slide number 16, your homework assignment. What you are getting handed out right now is a PDF handout which is titled, How to Survive Financially After Losing Your Job. Obviously, the goal is to help you find a job as quickly as possible, but it's never too early to prepare. So it talks about financial decisions, it talks about putting plans into place, financial steps, severance packages, health insurance, talking to family, etc. Thank you. And there's a checklist at the end. I think it's a really good, quick read for you folks to try to figure out what you need to do now in order to prepare for the time when you are not here any longer. Second thing I want you to start working through is what do you want to be when you grow up?
That's a hard one.
That is by far the hardest question to answer. Think about what do you want to be when you grow up? Where do you want to work? For someone like Michelle, it's really easy. Michelle already knows she's going to be going to nursing school. Priscilla knows what she's going to be doing. She's going to nursing school. I know what I'm going to be doing. So the 3 out of the folks in the room have it really, really easy because we know what we want to do in our next careers. But some of you folks, and I've talked to some of you folks directly, you're still not sure. Do you still want to be, do you want to continue doing an operational production type job? Do you want to do it for an insurance company? Do you want to do it for a bank? Do you want to do it for a financial institution? Do you want to do it outside of that? What skills of yours are transferable that you could move to do something else? Someone like an administrative assistant, if she chose, could be an administrative assistant to any type of career, any type of company or any type of institution. Some of you folks who think you are really pigeonholed into one field, you'll find out there's other fields out there that will utilize your skills, whether it be your computer skills or your productivity skills or your operational skills, or some of you are managers or supervisors or who have managed or supervised before. But you need to start really giving some thought to what you want to be when you grow up, because that is going to be, as a matter of fact, there's a book out there, which I've never read, but I've heard great things about. It's called What Color Is Your Parachute? How many people have ever heard that book? How many people have read the book? Okay, one. Pretty good book?
I actually have an online, you can get a CD link, goes through all the questions, you think it tells you fields you want to be in.
Okay, it kind of helps you think about what things you're good at, what things you like to do, and what things you want to go to. What color is your parachute?
Carol, there's another one called Do What You Are.
Do what
And
you
it
are.
basically is based on all the Myers-Briggs testing.
Okay.
You go through that, and then it'll tell you the type of careers which are your best fit. And not as much the industry, but what type of work. You may think, I want to work for this type of company, and you can, but it's the type of work that you should be doing that is the best fit.
Okay, good.
Do what you are. Do what you are.
Do what you are. We don't know the author. I don't know the author.
I
of that.
have it at home somewhere.
Do what you are. Okay. And my guess is anytime you want to find any of these books, go to Amazon.com, go into search.
Mhm.
Search on books. Do what you are. You
Parachute at the library, yeah.
Yeah, Parachute's definitely a library, but you can buy used books if you want to through Amazon.com. I guess you can probably buy them on eBay as well. But John would know eBay more than anyone else, so we'll ask John for that. Okay, item number 3. This one's really, really important. I need you all to choose a partner, and I want that partner's name next week. I'm going to be asking you who your partner's going to be. This partner is going to be your buddy, not only through the next 15 weeks, but I want this partner to be your buddy until you should be finding a job. I want you to find someone that you trust, that you want to stick around with, because there's going to be highs and lows in this. Okay? There's going to be highs and lows through this process. I got an interview. Oh my God, I had an interview. And you go to the interview. Oh, I didn't do too well. And you need someone who's going to help pump you up. Okay? You need someone who's going to help you practice some of the stuff I'm going to give you for the next 15 weeks. A lot of your assignments are going to be call up your partner and do X on the phone. Or do a face-to-face with your partner and do Y with that partner. So it's going to be very important. First thing we're going to do next week, I'm telling you right now, is I'm going to take out a whiteboard. I'm going to take out that board right there, and I'm going to put everyone's name down, and I'm going to have a partner down for everybody. Because these are the people who are going to push you on a regular basis, bring you up when you're down, try to keep you going when it looks like it's going to be the end. And I'm going to guarantee you one thing: one of you is going to find a job before the other. You're certainly not going to find the same job on the same day. So you got to continue to do it for that person, all the way through finding a job. Okay, item number 4. I want you to get out your last 3 to 4 annual appraisals, or it could be semi-annual appraisals, whatever appraisals you can find. I want you to get them out, because hopefully, all the crap I made your managers do, the specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, and time frame type pieces are on there. And it tells you your successes, your specific successes, about how fast you were, or what your quality was, or what projects you worked on, and what things you gave back to the company. Because some of those things we're going to be using in your resume writing. So I want to make sure you find them and get them out. And obviously, if you can't get them out, hopefully you can talk to your immediate supervisor and see if you can get copies of them one way or another. And the other thing I want you to do, as well as that, is I want you to list your top 6 skills and/or competencies. Okay, so what is a skill or and/or competency? It's a key word or phrase that describes either education, experience, knowledge, accomplishments. Could be hard skills, interpersonal skills, could be job related, could be volunteer related, it could be home related. I'll repeat it all over again. Keywords or phrases that describe education, experience, accomplishments, knowledge. Could be hard skills, like computer skills. I know Word, Excel, Access. It could be interpersonal skills. I have leadership skills. I have public speaking skills. Okay, maybe I don't. It could be knowledge. Okay, I know, I'm making this up. It might be good for another job. I know the AS400. I know ScanFlow. I know imaging systems. I know batching, balancing. I know how to do, what's the word I'm looking for? Encoding. Okay, I have encoding skills. The key thing for these top 6 skills and/or competencies, it's something that a future employer is going to want you to have. Okay? So those top 6 skills or competencies are parenting. Okay? That is a skill or competency. It is a home-based skill or competency. But unless you want to be an au pair or a daycare specialist, parenting is not going to help you. Okay? So you really want to put things down here that employers want. This is the last handout of the day. It's a one-pager. It's a simple one. Take it, pass it around. The last of your, I'm going to be passing out to you every once in a while these one-pagers from Harvey McKay. And this one is titled, What You Should Do Before You Go on Your First Interview. But when I started reading the 16 items that it was talking about, it was really a perfect segue to what we should be doing for this class. Okay, if you want to hit the ground running and finding a job, answer these questions. I'm not expecting you to answer these and bring these to me next week, but this is something you need to do for yourself. Describe your ideal job. Describe your ideal company. Where do you want to be in your career in 3 to 5 years? Start picturing the things you want, because it's going to help you when you get to negotiation. It's going to help you when you're networking, to figure out what you want. Again, for some of us, like Priscilla, Michelle, and myself, I know the answers to these, or most of these. Okay? And some of you know the answers as well, but you need to do a little bit of work on that. Any questions about anything we talked about today? Any questions about the schedule? Any questions about this homework assignment? This will be the last time I speak the whole time. Okay? Well, thanks for listening. Start selling.
Thank you.